Is so good. I don't think we can ever say it enough. I wish to give thanks to Alvaro Garcia. He's the chief of police for Palm Valley. He provided most of the notes that I am going to be using here tonight. I attended 3 weeks ago, a training seminar dealing with some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about tonight. And Chief Alvaro was very nice to give me his PDFs and all the materials that I needed to work with, so I didn't have to go out and do all the research completely on my own. So I wish to thank him for that. Now, there are none so blind than those who will not see, and there are none so deaf than those that refuse to hear, and there are none so dumb than them that refuse to speak. And if we are not careful, slide one, please. If we are not careful, then we are going to end up burying our head in the sands to the things that are around us, to the things that's going on around us. We live in a very perverse world, and I understand the scripture more and more every day that says that as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. I understand that more and more because during Noah's time, it was ruled by conscience. Man did what he thought was right in his own eyes. And in today's society, we're beginning to see this more and more. I'm hearing people say, well, I'm doing this because I think it's right. I feel it's right. They're justifying drugs. They're justifying synthetic drugs. They're justifying the murder of innocent babies. They're justifying euthanasia. They're justifying pornography. Man is ruling himself according to his consciousness, and we all know what trouble that caused in the days of Noah. Adam and Eve, and we see up here that the topic of tonight's message is Lost Eden. Adam and Eve, I need number 2, please. Adam and Eve, from the moment that the serpent appeared to Eve in the garden, from the moment that Eve saw the fruit was pleasing to the eye, from the moment that she listened to the serpent and took the first bite, from the deciding moment of Adam's acceptance of Eve's offering of the fruit to their disobedience to God's law, Eden was lost. And mankind has been falling for the tricks of the serpent since the beginning of time. And his work is disguised in many forms. And one of the forms of Satan's work is the lack of knowledge. Hosea 4:6 says, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. We cannot bury our head in the sand to the things around us. Because if we do, then we become guilty of the same thing. Today's fruits are being repeated with Facebook, Craigslist, Backpage, Instagram, and Kicks. And these are just some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. These are just a few of the tricks that we as adults and our precious children could fall into if we do not open our eyes and know what is happening in our homes, number 1, and in our schools, number 2, and when our kids are with their friends, number 3. Innocence was lost the day that Adam and Eve fell, and today thousands are losing their innocence, their families, and even their lives in the garden of the internet. Now, the Catholic University of Chile and the Boston University did a research paper in 2008 to 2010, and there was a 2.18% increase in divorce rate of participants of Facebook. Well, why does Facebook cause divorce rates? Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that Facebook jumps out and makes anybody go and get a divorce. But for somebody that gets on Facebook and their heart is not right with God, then there are doors and back doors to these programs that they can walk through, and before they know it, they are caught up into a web of sexuality. They are chatting in a chat room with somebody. They are talking to somebody about, hey, why don't we meet and have a cup of coffee? And then the next thing you know, you've got a home that's split up and children that's without families. Research in Austin, Texas, at the university in 2011 and 2012, they researched 1,160 married couples. And of these couples that they did research on, they found that the more time they spent on the internet, on these social media networks, the lower their levels of happiness in their marriage was, and the higher the risk of adultery, and the higher the risk of divorce. Heavy social networking has been labeled as a strong, positive predicator of thinking about walking away from a marriage. Social media crimes between 2008 and 2012 increased. In 2008, there were 556 police-reported crimes associated with social media. 4 years later, it increased 780% to 4,908. That's a huge increase in just 4 years. Next slide, please. Now, we are going to be talking about the technological trends tonight, and I don't know if you can see what's written in the black there, but it says, if the human race wants to go to hell in a basket, technology can help it get there by jet. We today, I was talking to an individual yesterday, and we were just batting some of this stuff around, and I agreed with a statement that they made. What used to take us years to learn, if we ever learned it, you can learn in one day by the touch of a button. You know, we used to didn't know who was being beheaded overseas. Things like that was kept as military intelligence. That was kept silent. Today, you know, even before the police authorities know half the time, by the touch of a button. Criminals are getting on the internet and they're announcing what they're doing. They did a study in Chicago, and they found that the gangs and all in Chicago was announcing when, where, and how they were going to have their riots and who their hits were going to be. So social media has not only opened up the door for pedophiles, it's opened up the door for the criminals to conduct their activities online. Now, Jack Dole of the Daily Mail wrote this. Now, the Daily Mail is a newspaper that comes out of England, and it circulates all the United Kingdom. And it says, crimes linked to Facebook reported every 40 minutes. References to murder, rape, sex offenders, assault, kidnappings, death threats, witnesses, and intimidation and fraud is reported every 40 minutes on Facebook alone. That does not include the other social medias that we are going to be talking about tonight. Now, while you must be, and I'm going to show you as we go through these medias what the media says, while you must be on most of these pages at least 13 years old, some of them 18 years old, to get on these media sites, there's nothing to stop you from changing the date of your birthday and saying, I'm 13 or I'm 18. From experience, these medias do not really care how old your precious children are when they get on it. I first discovered my daughter's Facebook page quite by a fluke when she was 12 years old. I went on Facebook and asked them to disconnect her page because she had changed her password. I couldn't get in and I couldn't even find out what her password was. Facebook refused. I told them, I said, she is 12 years old. They said, we don't care because of Privacy Acts, you can do nothing about it, and we don't care that you are her mother. They told me that personally. So they don't care about your children. So you need to check into parental guidelines on your computers, on your TVs. And if you've got smart TVs, we're going to talk about those in a few minutes. Because in these smartphones, don't think that you're protected just because you think you know the apps that are on smartphones. I'm going to show you some tricks of the trade in a few minutes. Smart TVs can be activated remote controlly from another source. And while that TV is sitting in your home, that TV can be cut on by a hacker and everything in your home can be viewed. And you are never even aware of it. Sister Yuzupan, that's science fiction. No, it's not. I have seen video clips of where burglars have activated, hacked into the smart TV systems through the internet and viewed what was in the homes, know when the people were going to be leaving, and go in and rob the homes while they were gone, or go in the home when the teenage daughter was there by herself, and you take it from there. And no, that's not CSI, Los Angeles, New York, or New Orleans. That's the real stuff. So we need to be conscious of what we're doing. If you have a smart TV in your home, the best thing you can do is get a piece of duct tape and cover up that eye that's on your TV. If your computers have the video cams, one of the best things that you can do is disconnect it so that your kids cannot use it. Because they don't need to be on Skype. They don't need to be on some of these other programs that we're going to be talking about, because pedophiles use these programs to get to your kids. The next slide, please, Brother Riley. Now, some of the things we're going to be talking about is we're going to identify current technological trends in which children may become victims of abuse. Now, I'm going to tell you parents something. It's not children that's just fallen under the trap. But the difference between you or I and these innocent children is they cannot speak for themselves. We can. So if somebody approaches us inappropriately, if we don't lay them out, then we can report them. But these precious little ones cannot. So we need to be even doubly cautious where the children are concerned. We're going to identify some local issues concerning the use of synthetic drugs among children and identify the various Texas Penal Code offenses involved in child abuse and investigations. Child abuse is one of the only penal codes that also can carry a life sentence without parole. You can spend the rest of your life, it's equal to the death sentence, if you abuse a child more than one time in the state of Texas. Next page, please. Now, how many, I know what we did, and I know Brother Reyes did, how many of you that have children and they have phones, you ever check their apps? Well, I'm invading my child's privacy. If that child's putting their feet under your table, invade it. Sorry, young people. Because there is so much trouble that you can get into and not even be aware of it. Parents, you need to pay attention to what you're putting on your phone, because there are things that you can put on your phone that opens back doors into the internet, and you think you're going to look at Crochet World and you end up seeing a homosexual site. So pay attention to what you're doing. There are programs, CBS and ABC did a program on hidden text apps. There are programs, parents, that you think your kids just texting through your local phone company, or they're texting through FrontierNet, they're texting through Facebook. But there is things called Hide My Text, Secret Text, Cover Me, Confide. Confide helps in adultery. This is an app that can be downloaded onto the phone, and these young people and men and women are meeting other people, and it's supposed to, disappear once the contact is made. Let me tell you something. A forensic police investigator can pull that right back up off that phone. It does not disappear like y'all think it does. There's some more hidden texts that I'm going to be showing you that the kids are using. One popular one that somebody mentioned to me yesterday on the street that was already in my study is Kicks. And I've had several people ask me to put Kik on my phone. No, Kik is not going on my phone, and we're going to talk about why. The first one here we're going to talk about, next one please, Brother Riley, is Facebook. It seems to be the most popular thing right now. It has 901 million diverse users across the world. That's a lot of people. A distributor of a recent investigation uncovered the dark underbelly of Facebook. A community of members who blatantly promote and share child pornography use their personal Facebook accounts and Facebook groups. Now, to be sure, to be honest, while the content can be found on Facebook, it is usually posted by a third party, and it's usually hidden with code messages and code names. Facebook promotes, next slide, Brother Riley, preteen hardcore porn, 12 to 13, boy sex, gang banging, incest, BLW job fan page, and tiny nude teens. This is just a few of the sites. These are children. The number one abuse age on Facebook is 12 to 17 years old. And these children are being abused because pedophiles get on here. They hide themselves in the background. They entice your children to do things, to sneak out of the house, to meet them at the local coffee shop, to go here, to go there, to skip school, and they think they're meeting another teenager, and when they walk into that person's house or they get into that person's car, shebang, it's not another teenager. One of the big crimes that recently hit in Scotland was a 17-year-old girl thought she was meeting a boy that she had been chatting with on Facebook. She goes, she skipped school, she met him. When he got there, she started to get in the car and she noticed he was a lot older than what she thought he was. And she said, wait a minute, you're not, and she called the young man's name. He said, I'm his dad. He couldn't come, so I've come to pick you up. The young girl, 17 years old, by this time you'd think she'd know better, but she got into the car. The next time they saw her was at the morgue. We need to be very, very cautious. Ladies and gentlemen, young people, kids, you don't ever get into somebody's vehicle, and you don't ever go to a stranger's place if you do not know who they are, and you always let an adult know where you are and where you're going. You may think I'm 17, 18 years old, I'm tough. There's a lot of tough people out in the cemetery right down the road. So you need to pay close attention. The next one, please. Craigslist. Now, we've heard a lot about Craigslist in the last couple of years. The Craigslist murders, people advertising furniture and stuff like that on Craigslist, and then when they show up at the house, their homes end up getting robbed or they end up getting abused because it's pedophiles, it's criminals that is looking for an opportunity. Craigslist supports pedophile and child molesters and has been known to use the personal ads to solicit its victims. Human traffickers use personal ads to post prostitution ads for trafficking women and many who are underage. We say, well, you know, if they're prostitutes, they've made that choice and they're doing this, they're all adults. No, they're not. There's 12 and 13-year-old girls on there, and some even younger. So we need to pay very close attention to what we open up into our homes and what we allow our children to take part in. A study was done not too long ago, and where Craigslist has opened up, Craigslist usually goes into major cities. If you type in Craigslist here, you'll notice the two cities that pop up for the Valley is Brownsville and McAllen. Okay? When Craigslist comes into these areas and they open their doors for this social networking and sell your stuff and swap, buy, and trade, they have researched and they have found that there is an increase in HIV and an increase in STDs. And the reason for that is because of the prostitution and all that the pimps and all bring in and start advertising on Craigslist. Sister Yuzapan, that can't be true. I'm not telling not one of you teenagers to do this, and I'm not even telling you adults to do this. But if you go on Craigslist and you look over to your right-hand side of that page, you will see personals. And go down that list. You don't even have to open the page. The subtitles tell you enough. Those subtitles tells you girls, boys, young, old, escorts, man to man, woman to woman. Do I need to continue? Okay. Pimps load up their girls and they take them. Let's see, what was it's going on this week? The stock show. Okay. They watch local communities for things like the stock show and all that's going on. And when the convention went on in Fort Worth back in June that I went to, the Republican convention, they watch stuff like this and they look for these conventions, and they will load up all their boys and girls and they will take them to this convention so that they can rake in the money during the time that those conventions are in town. And they learn and they activate all this through social media. Next page, please. Management Information Systems Quarterly had this to say: the entry of online classified services, Craigslist, into the local market led to an average 16% increase of HIV alone. Our studies suggest that there is a new social route of HIV transmission that has taken place in this digital era. What's this, Pan? My goodness, Craigslist is just a page. It can't give you HIV. That's true. I'm not dumb. But it follows those pages and takes part in the activity of those pages. And let's face it, when you usually tell somebody don't do something, it's natural instinct to do it. That's why we as adults have got to police this, for lack of a better word. We have got to get on top of it. We are responsible for those living in our homes. And so we need to learn and educate ourselves. And don't let these kids come in here. I'm going to share some street language with you in a few minutes. Don't let these kids come in here and tell you, well, we're just singing a popular song, and the whole time they're singing about synthetic drugs. And they sing it to each other, and when you interpret the songs, you find out that they're telling each other where to meet and where to pick it up and how much it's going to cost. Healthcare practitioners and policymakers have to look more closely at online platforms to assess how much usage it will spread to the HIV and the STDs across our country. It's getting worse as the day goes on. The next slide shows you Craigslist, as I was talking about, and I'm sorry I told you on the right-hand side, but it's on the left-hand side. You'll see the personal ads. That's where you don't need to be. Okay? And if you post on Craigslist, and I've posted things on Craigslist to sell, and somebody calls and says, well, let me come to your house and see it. Don't invite them to your house. If it's something that you can put in your car and meet them at the Stripes or something, do that. Or don't meet them at your home by yourself, because it can be a lead-in for criminal activity. The next page, please. This is another upcoming page. It's called Backpage. It's a lot like Craigslist. At least 10% of the ads under the escorts title section targets and has minors between the age of 12 and 17 years old, and most of them are illegally trafficked. Now, if you don't know what that means they were kidnapped and forced into prostitution. All these children that's on the back of milk cartons and posters in the offices that says, help us find so-and-so, they're not all custody battles. Some of them are in the hands of pimps and madams. So we need to, once again, open our eyes. The next slide shows, it's a dark slide, but it shows teenagers that's 12 or 13 years old being involved in this type of activity. The next slide shows you what Backpage looks like. And if you'll look over here to the second blue box on the far right-hand side, you will see adult activities. You will see escorts, body rubs, strippers and strip clubs. You will see fetishes and S&M, among other things, male escorts, phone websites, adult jobs. Do you really want your children unsupervised on some of these pages? Remember, I told y'all several times that if we don't protect them, the devil will get them. When you go on Backpage, there is a signature that you have to sign that states, I confirm I am 18 years old or older. Agree or don't agree. Now, let me tell you something. How much sense does that make? You got a 15-year-old kid whose friend at school that day told them, go join Backpage. And when you get to that agree box, just say agree. That's all you got to do. And now you got 12, 13, 14, and 15-year-olds on adult websites that's got no business being there. And you don't have no business being there. I don't have no business being there. Our children definitely don't have any business being there. And we need to be more conscious of this. The next page, Instagram. Now, Instagram is real popular right now. People are sharing pictures. According to the website, you have to be 13 years or older to open an account, or you have to get your parents' permission. Yeah, right. Let's be honest. How many kids are going to run to their mom and say, I want Instagram. Can I get it? Most of us don't. Like Facebook, next slide please. Like Facebook, Instagram is full of unsavory individuals trying to contact others without knowing them. There have been instances, I'm having trouble saying that one, reported of kids being contacted by pedophiles trying to get their hands on photos of young girls. Hey, my name's Joey. I'd like to see what you look like. We've been talking now for a couple of days. Send me a picture. Or, hi, my name's Susie. I'd like to see a picture. And so they send pictures of each other trying to impress until Joey one day says, won't you meet me at the mall? And Susie disappears. Or vice versa. It's not just girls that are victims. They mask themselves as some type of legitimate business, like radio stations running a contest, knowing that this is sure to lure young people. When my daughter was first taken out of the state of Texas, a man walked up to her in McDonald's and said, I've got a job for you. Without ever knowing him, didn't know who he was, she got in the van. She felt safe. Why? Because there was 3 women with him. Got in the van. I got a phone call from her several days later. She was in Austin, Texas. So we need to be wise in what we're doing. We need to pay attention to the activities. As long as your children, the law says you are responsible for anything your child does until they reach the age of 18 years old. They are not emancipated. If they go out and break the law and they're not 18 years old, guess who the police department is going to come and look at? Because while they're going to pay, mom and daddy's also going to pay. Okay, so you need to take, not only do you need to take the responsibility because you had those children and you have a God-given responsibility to take care of those children, not only do you need to do it for that reason, but you need to do it for the fact also that you are legally responsible for those children. And heaven forbid that I get a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning that something like what we're talking about tonight has happened to one of our precious ones. The next page, please, Brother Riley. Now, Instagram's revised policy states that it retains all rights to photos posted through Instagram. When you put your picture on Instagram, you think you own that picture and that you can go in anytime you want to and remove it. Guess what? You can't. You do not own that picture. You may go in and take that picture down, but Instagram has got it snapshotted into their memory banks. And there was an incident here a while back where a bunch of pictures were sold to a third party and they appeared on another website. And these girls were going, I didn't sell those pictures. No, you didn't. Instagram did. And I went in last night and I read their policies, and it does say that. They own any picture or any chat that you put on their page. It is their property. So you need to be careful what you put on there. A child posting photos of himself or herself, Instagram can sell that photo without even asking parental permission. It has no obligation to even pay the person who took the photograph. In other words, once a photo is posted on Instagram, it belongs to them. And it is in their policy and procedures. And that's something else. How many of us actually read the policies half the time? Most of the time we just scroll down, click agree, and go. And so we don't know what's actually in there. So we need to maybe start reading just a little bit more. I've been guilty of it. Because some of that legal term, you go for pages of reading it. But maybe we need to start paying a little more attention. The next one, please, Brother Riley. Kicks. Chat on your terms. This is a page where you can chat and connect with your friends no matter where you meet them, at school, on your favorite social app, or in the online games. All you got to do is ask, what's your kicks? And you can chat with them. The next page, please. Super quick instant messaging with apps with over 1 million users allows teens to exchange videos, pictures, and sketches. New Kicks cards allows the users to send YouTube videos, create memes, and GIFs without leaving the apps. Kicks cards reach over 2 million users within the first week of their launch. Now, what is a meme? Anybody in here can tell me what a meme is, young people? Somebody want to tell me what a meme is? No, it's not a self-portrait. A meme is where you can go in and make a statement without any proof of what that statement is. So they can go in and say, Brother Yuzapan is turning purple green and painting himself with white polka dots, and it will go viral, and it becomes reality, even though there's not a bit of truth to it. So when you go on Kicks, don't take, if you're on Kicks, don't take everything you read on there as gospel. As far as that goes, neither take everything that you see on Facebook as truth. You know, I read a quote on there the other day that I fully agree with. It said, believe it or not everything on Facebook is true. I know I've posted 100 times Abraham Lincoln. Some of you got it. We need to be careful and use some common sense, folks. I know it's not that common today, but try to develop some. Next item, please. Teens are using Kicks for sexting and dating. Teens are sending nude selfies one to another through this application. There has been more kids get in trouble at school because they think the pictures does not stay. And when some of the teachers have gone in and pulled their computers, the pictures are still there. The term sex buddy is being replaced with the term kick buddy. So when you hear somebody say, hey, they're my kick buddy, they're not talking about the person they're talking to. Teens use Read It and other forum sites to place classified ads for sex by giving out their Kik usernames. Kik does not offer any parental control. Additionally, there is no way for authenticating users, thus making it easy for pedophiles to use the messenger apps. The top 5 most dangerous apps on smartphones and computers today is Snapchat, Tinder, Vine, Whisper, and 9gag. And we're going to talk about these here. This was reported February of 2015 by USA Today. They are the most dangerous for kids. Next slide. Snapchat is the #1 sexting app on the market. Ladies and gentlemen, I have never been able to understand, never understood Playboy magazine, and I don't understand sexting on a phone. This just seems so immature to me. You meet a young man, you meet a young woman, you date, you get engaged, you get married, then you have sex. That's the way God intended for it to be. He didn't intend for you to meet on the phone, exchange nude pictures, pat each other on the back virtually, and then somewhere meet in the future and hope that person that you saw on that phone is the same person you're going to meet. Teens send nude pictures, nude snapshots to their supposedly significant others under the impression that snaps self-destruct. They do not. It may disappear off your phone in the 5 minutes or the 5 seconds that Snap advertises, but a forensic expert can come in and easily recover that picture. And let me tell you something, if a forensic expert can, so can a pornographer. They could probably even do it quicker, because that's their job. Don't think because you've been duped into believing what you put on the internet disappears, that it does. Once it's on the internet, it's there. It stays. It does not disappear. And sometimes when you post even good stuff, okay, I have typed my name into the internet and seen pictures that I didn't post on the internet, pictures of my family that I didn't post on the internet, but maybe Anissa had taken a picture and she put it on her Facebook page, and it automatically goes, you Google it, and there's that picture. And there, Anissa didn't do nothing wrong. She had my permission. They're all fine pictures. But the thing is, you put things on the internet thinking that you're protected, that it's my Facebook page, it's my Kicks page, it's my Craigslist page. Nobody else will ever see it. Wrong. They can, they will, and they do. Due to the countless number of nude shots, porn sites have popped up all over the internet to take advantage of the free content. Used to, the pornographers had to go out and solicit girls and boys to come in and take pictures for them. Not anymore. They just go on the internet and steal the pictures. Because y'all are posting them on the internet without thinking. Don't need to be doing it to begin with, but this is what's happening to what you think nobody else sees. The next slide, please, Brother Riley. While snapshots and messages only last for a few seconds once they've opened, then the messages are supposed to evaporate. In theory, you're supposed to be able to send embarrassing or risque pictures without being afraid of someone stealing them or distributing them. Unfortunately, the claim that Snapshot makes it safe to send risque pictures is just plain wrong. Can't be done. I have seen forensic studies where they have gone in and taken computers that they have tried to fry the hard drives by pouring Coke or something over it. And a good forensic pathologist can go in and he can pull that hard drive and he can recover parts. He may not be able to recover it all, but he can recover parts of what you thought you destroyed on that computer. The same with your cell phones. Why do you think criminals buy throwaways? It's not because they're cheap and they can grab them off the shelves or steal them off the shelves. It's because your throwaways are almost, and even they are almost, they're almost virtually untraceable. As long as you do one little thing to it, and I'm not telling you what. The next slide is going to talk about Tinder. Now, Tinder is all about meeting new romantic partners. Whatever happened to boy meet girl and they get to know each other? The computer has caused more divorces and more problems than I ever remember as a young person myself when we did it the old-fashioned way. Back when the dinosaurs walked on the earth. But these kids today, and I've seen it with my own daughter. Well, I've known him for 2 or 3 years, or I've known her for 2 or 3 years. Where did you meet them? Oh, I've never actually met them, but they're a good friend. Jeffrey Dahmer claimed to be a good friend, too. Persons can create a profile and see images of potential romantic matches in the immediate areas. The people can choose whether they're interested in another person or not. If two people like each other, then they can have a conversation through the app and potentially hook up. Now, I know that our young people meet each other. The UPC has a youth chat room that young people from different churches get together and they chat, and I advise you to be careful even with that. But I know we meet today. It's not like it was 50 years ago. We do meet a lot of people and talk to a lot of people over the internet. But use caution, use wisdom. And before you meet anybody, make sure you know who you're meeting. And I suggest if you do meet somebody over the internet and you go to that first meeting, you take a company of people with you. And if you're licensed to carry, carry. You don't know who you're meeting. So you need to use wisdom. And that was meant as a joke. The carry part. Maybe. Actually, underage teens aren't even supposed to be using this app. But once again, there's no control. So the teenagers can just go in and say, hey, I'm 18 years old, when actually they're 10. Or they're 11. Or they're 12. And then they meet up with somebody that's 40 or 50 or 60. You must have a Facebook account with a birth date that indicates the user is over 18 years of age. Well, once again, that's not hard to do. It's just a simple keystroke. Any child who ends up with this app will be meeting people who are potentially well over the legal age. They might come across predators, scammers, and a variety of creeps that no one would want to deal with. And you definitely wouldn't want them messing with your children. In short, Tinder is dangerous for kids, and we need to keep them away from it. The next one we're going to talk about is Vine. How many's heard of Vine? Okay. Vine is not as well known as some of the others. Vine got into some difficulties here a while back. It seems like a totally safe app at first, but it gets dangerous when you consider how strong peer pressure is on the social media. Teens will do almost anything for acceptance and attention. The best way to get attention on local media is to do something edgy or crazy. All right, y'all ready? Last year, the most dramatic example yet was teens across the world took to setting themselves on fire. The #1 fire challenge hashtag was one of the most popular during the month of August in 2013. Y'all remember the ice bucket challenge that went viral? And everybody was sitting there pouring ice cubes over themselves. Cha-ching. And then something about ghost peppers. Cha-ching. Okay, now we have the fire challenge. And these kids and some adults are literally setting themselves on fire and posting it on the internet. Now, you still want to tell me this is innocent? Next slide, please. In response to this, Vine released the Vine Kids app, which features hand-selected videos that are supposed to be appropriate for younger audiences. Unlike the real Vine app, kids cannot record videos. That's really the only two differences between them. If a child does use Vine or any social media site, parents should friend, follow, or join them on it and monitor what they're doing. And they're saying, know your children's passwords. You have that right. You know their passwords on their phone. You find out their passwords to any social media they're involved in if you allow them to involve themselves in it. And I will go a step further. Put the computer in a room that the whole family can see. Not only do your children need to be accountable, but we need to be accountable. My husband has my passwords. I have his passwords. Do I trust him? 100%. But I want to be accountable for what I do. And you need to know your children's too, because you might be, God forbid, you might be the last connection to their Facebook page or Craigslist page or Kix page or any other page that you have to turn it over to the police. So you need to make yourself wise. Check your children's phones. And I don't mean don't give them 24-hour notice. Just walk up and say, hand me your phone. I'm not giving you my phone. I've heard it. Fine. Don't give it to me. Call the phone company and disconnect it. You're paying the bills. Boy, there's some young people in here. It's not going to like me when we get done tonight. Mom and Daddy, as long as you're paying the bill, disconnect it. And I'm going to tell you something else. They got TVs in their rooms. You need to know what they're putting in that TV or what they're putting on that TV. They have Computers, and no offense to my school teachers in here, but I think one of the worst mistakes school made was give computers to kids to take home. I had total control over my computer until the first one came home. And she was told that she had to take it to her room and do her schoolwork. And she's wasn't supposed to be on certain pages and all, but hey, they're kids. They find their way onto things that we have to scratch our heads to find it. And when they knew that there was going to be a computer check at school, they'd go in and erase everything or download it onto a zip drive. So check your kid's school computer too. Know what their password is on that school computer. You have the right as a parent. Do it. You need to know what your children are involved in. The next one we're going to talk about is called Whisper. Now, Whisper, I want y'all to listen to me about Whisper. Whisper is built specifically for spreading rumors and secrets. It lets users post pictures and text anonymous messages. Apps like Whisper is potentially a good outlet for teens as anonymous confessions and help people unburden themselves. However, Whisper shares the secrets based on geographical location. Whisper has a built-in GPS. And if you tell somebody that you're from Fort Worth, Texas, and you're logging in to Whisper from Raymondville, Texas, guess what? It shows Raymondville, Texas. So you can't hide where you're logging in from if you use Whisper. It shows your geographical location. The users nearest to you will know exactly where you are, and they will see your secret. This has become a potential danger to people who use Whisper because they get on there and they tell everything. I used to think, my grandmother used to get a magazine called True Confessions. And I used to think that was horrible. My goodness, that was the Archie comic books of the 1940s compared to the internet today. You need to be careful what you're posting. Whisper is extremely dangerous. This is the most dangerous apps for kids because of the GPS tracking situation. You let a pedophile get on there and start tracking your kid. As far as that goes, you let a sexual offender get on there and start tracking you. Cyberbullying is much more hurtful when the person bullying your child moves from online to in-person. And once they found out where you're at, then they can tell you, they can come and bully you in person. I'll tell you a scary story. My phone rang one day when we lived in Brunswick, Georgia. And on the other line was an attorney's office from Atlanta, Georgia. And that attorney's office said, we are trying to get in contact with the person that lives directly across the street from you. We have been calling them all day. Would you please go over there, knock on his door, and ask him to cut on his fax machine so that we can send him these papers for him to sign? The word stupid's not stamped up here. And I said, no, sir, I can't do that. I said, if you are an attorney, I said, you send one of your pages down here and you have them knock on his door and tell him you're trying to get in contact with him. I have no way of knowing you are who you say you are. He said, ma'am, let me tell you something. He told me the color of the house I was living in, or the trailer I was living in, told me where my car was parked, told me where my telephone was in my house, told me what I was wearing. And he did it all through Google Mapping and Google Earth. That's scary. So let me throw in a punchline in here. If you think you can run from the Antichrist when the rapture of the church takes place and not have to take the mark of the beast, think again. They will know where you are. Right now they can track you just about anywhere in this world. GPS, while it's great if our children are missing, and it's great if our husbands have disappeared and they were supposed to be home at 4 o'clock, or our wives have disappeared and they're supposed to be home at 4 o'clock, and there's been a wreck, GPS is great. Our car's been stolen, GPS is great. But there's a dark side to it. There's a price to pay for giving up your privacy. The next slide, please, Brother Raleigh. Let's talk about 9gag. One of the most popular apps to distribute memes and pictures online. The risky part for teens lies within the fact that all kinds of pictures are shared on 9gag. These pictures aren't moderated and could come from any uploader, feature terrible images, and you don't want kids seeing. Now, I went on 9gag last night because 95% of these sites, when I went on them to see what the age start limitations were. But and all of them had the page where you had to sign up to get into it, not 9gag. When I typed in 9gag, it took me straight to their homepage, and that's exactly what was on. There's pictures on there you don't want your children seeing. There's suggestions on there you don't want your children seeing. One of the very first things I saw was videos that were marked. The video itself was blacked out, and it says unsafe for work, but click here to view. In other words, you can't watch it at work because you might get fired, but you can click here and you can watch it on your computer. How many of you honestly think your 12 and 13-year-old's curiosity is not going to peak? And then you're going to wonder why they're doing some of the things they're doing. We wonder why. It opens up doors to things that they would have never known about if they had not have discovered it on some of these pages. And there's some things that was on here that I was going to discuss. I can't because we have children in the room. But there are some things that your children would never know about if they were not exposed to it. There's some things that we as adults don't need to be exposed to. And there's some things that we would have probably never known about if we hadn't got exposed to it somewhere along the line. And it shatters an innocence that should have never been shattered, just like back in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were naked and knew it not. Kids are innocent until their eyes are open to things like this right here. Many of the people guilty of swatting. How many of you have heard of swatting? All right, I've got a mental picture, and y'all are all on videotape. If this happens at my house tonight, I'm going to turn every one of you over. Swatting is where people go on the internet, and they locate somebody's home, and then they pick up the telephone, and they call the FBI, or they call the ATF, or they call the local police department, and they say, hey, there's a crime going on at 8218 Ebony Avenue. You need to get over there now. Somebody's being killed. I can hear them screaming. Get over there right now, right now. Next thing you know, the police are busting in your front door. It's happened numerous times right here in the U.S. And it's all because some kid thought it was the equivalent of us picking up the phone call 30 years ago. Is your refrigerator running? Yeah. Well, you better go catch it. But this is a lot more dangerous. Swatting has had the FBI show up at people's houses because they were reported to be terrorists with gun arsenals. And it was just kids playing pranks. Those are not pranks. But 9gag supports this. And believe you me, you get reported for being a terrorist in this day and age, it takes an act of Congress, even though you're innocent, to get rid of that stigma. So people think. The next one is called Ask FM. It's where you can get on there. It's almost the equivalent of the old game we used to play, Truth or Dare. Well, you can get on here and Ask FM. You have to be 13 years of age, supposedly, to get on it. Another site that's really not good for teens. 25% of the teens have posted something on Ask FM in the last 30 days. It's one of the hottest social networks used by teenagers and preteens today, even bigger than Facebook. Ask FM is integrated with Twitter and Facebook. It allows anonymous questions without you having to identify yourself, but if I'm not mistaken, when I was on there last night, it does have a GPS tracker. It is known for intense bullying. It has led to 4 documented cases of suicide in the United States, Ireland, and Britain. Users of Ask FM engage in hyperbullying by constantly asking inappropriate and derogatory questions. While the app is totally anonymous, it is also not monitored by the developers. A lot of these pages, like Facebook, for example, if you report something, I had a picture appear on my Facebook page the other day, I immediately erased it and called Facebook or emailed Facebook. Facebook got back with me within 24 hours and said they had removed the individual that posted the picture. So, you need to be diligent. Don't just say, well, I'll take this off and won't worry about it, because when it appears on your wall, there's others that's in your line. If like my sister can go on my wall, she can see anything that goes on my wall. So you need to be diligent in things. Report it, block it, take it down. And ladies and gentlemen, these people that say, I've got 6,000 friends. No, you don't. You got 6,000 people you've allowed to come on your Facebook page. If you take all the fluff off, all the he knows her, that knows him, that knows her, that knows them, that's actually a friend 4 times removed from my friend that I really let on my page. When you take all them people off, you might have 30, 40, 50 people. And there's nothing wrong with that little defriend button, especially if they're posting nasty pictures, nasty comments, derogatory remarks, among many, many other things. The next app is called, and I may say this wrong, Sparfle. I could not find a pronunciation key on it. But it's owned by Scotland in the United Kingdom, and it allows you to post anonymously. Locations based on messages is completely open. So it's GPS activated. They know where you are when you're posting. One of the apps that I noticed on the very first page before I logged off of it after getting the age limit was Young, Beautiful App Seeks Sugar Daddy. Are y'all recognizing the theme here? Let's go to the next one. Now this one, young people, if you've got this one on your computer or your phone, I'm fixing to blow your cover. This is called SpyCalc. Parents, if your kids got SpyCalc, they are hiding their activity from you. SpyCalc is being used by young people, and when you go in their room and they say, oh, I'm doing my homework, Mom. Oh, you are? And you look on their computer and you see a calculator. Okay, you're doing your homework, and you walk out the door. And the minute you walk out the door, they type in a sequence of numbers onto that calculator. The calculator disappears and the page comes up. And they can do secret text messaging. They can send pictures. They can do sexting. They can do just about anything they want to on SpyCalc. Next one, please, Brother Riley. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Talk to strangers. There is a disclaimer on the site that says the only problem with a few of sites like this is that you will find yourself in an embarrassing environment. Why do you want to subject yourself to that? And do you really want your kids subjecting themselves to it? Well, they've got to grow up sometime. What's wrong with them growing up wholesome? What's wrong with them growing up innocent? What's wrong with them growing up knowing you wait for sex until you get married? And what's wrong with them growing up protected from the evils of this world as much as we can protect them? On Talk to Strangers, there's a lot of emphasis on this page about talking to girls, how to impress them, and where to find them. And if you see the picture up there, that's a link to a game. That picture is provocative within itself. So that tells you what game you're fixing to walk into. Next slide, please. The key for parents is to monitor downloaded apps on their child's phone and mobile device. And parents, I really think we need to make ourselves accountable to each other, to your spouse. Make yourself accountable to your husband. Like my husband has my passwords. I have his passwords. We need to be accountable. Not that you don't trust each other. It's just a safety precaution. I was talking to an employer in town here this week, and he said that his boss came in and he was getting in trouble for, it was reported that he had sex pictures on his computer page. And he said, I don't have sex pictures on my computer page. And so they went in to see what this guy was talking about. And what it was is he works in the medical field, and so he might type in catheters. And when he type in catheters, you get pictures of the human anatomy on there. And he had pictures of male and female anatomy that was stored in the memory of his computer because he was searching for certain medical devices. So there are times when things just, pop up. And so because somebody else had his back and it was work-related, they knew that this was not pornography. This was part of the medical field that he was in. But it's good to be accountable. That's why we tell kids, don't go there by yourself. Don't do this by yourself. Well, just because we've grown up don't mean that we don't need to be accountable. Because we also need to make ourselves, because we can get in just as much trouble. Moving quickly along, Google the apps and learn if they're dangerous and inappropriate. It's not hard to go in and type these apps in and find out what your kids are involved in. Parents, you need to know their passwords or users' names for monitoring purposes and communicate with your children about why you're monitoring it. Don't just, say, well, I'm taking all your privileges away. No, tell them why you're doing it and let them know the dangers that they can get into. If at all possible, keep it all in a public area. On this part of the program, are there any questions? Okay, we're going to move real quickly along through this next section. Stop dangerous synthetic drugs. Now, there's been a big movement over these are synthetic drugs, so they can't harm me. It's not natural pot. It's not natural cocaine. It's not natural LSD. This is all man-made materials. Let me tell you something. Man-made materials sometimes is worse than the original stuff, and that's not a license to go out and do the natural plants either. So don't think, since you said I could go do the natural plant, no. Okay, Texas has made synthetic drugs illegal. Next slide, please. As of 2013, 2012, synthetic drugs are illegal. If you see them in a store around here, and when I show you some of them in a minute, you're going to recognize some of them from being in stores around here. If you see them in the stores around here, I'll just go ahead and give you a 411. They are coming out, and the police are moving in on them because they are illegal. They carry penalties. There are Class A and Class B misdemeanors. Possession of K2 by itself is Class A and Class B misdemeanors. It is illegal to manufacture, distribute, possess, or sell these substances. Next page, please, Brother Riley. These two y'all should recognize. If you go into just about any store that sells cigarettes and all. Spice and K2, synthetic marijuana. Forbes.com, August of 2014, made this statement. Spice and K2 is more toxic to the brain than pot. The body does not know how to deactivate synthetic materials. So the world come out, okay, we know smoking pot's bad for you, so we're going to go ahead and put it in a chemical form. We're going to create it in our laboratory, and you can smoke it, and it's good. Wrong. It's not good for you. And it is now illegal in the state of Texas. Next slide, please. K2 or spice is often marketed as herbal incense, contains substances that produce psychoactive effects similar to those of smoking marijuana. These marijuana-like substances are ready, available through smoke shops, gas stations, and the internet. The next slide shows you some of the side effects of smoking this stuff. And just because you put it in a bong and smoke it doesn't make it any healthier. Sister Isabel, how do you know about bongs? The effects are elevated moods, relaxation, altered perspective, psychotic effects, extreme anxiety, paranoia, hallucination, rapid heart rates, vomiting, agitation, confusion, hallucinations, raised blood pressure associated with heart attacks. Regular users may experience withdrawal and the same addiction symptoms as any other drug. Next slide, Brother Raleigh. It is illegal in the state of Texas, and it's going viral across the United States, but it is illegal in the state of Texas to purchase more than 1 gram of bath salts. And even if you purchase bath salts, say you go into a Hobby Lobby, I got Hobby Lobby on the brain, Bed Bath & Beyond, and you purchase a thing of bath salts, and you walk out with them, and you're going home. The police department told us at the seminar, most of the time they're going to look at you and they're going to say, we're going to leave her alone, because you can buy bath salts on the market. But if little Joey at 13, 14 years old comes out with 5 pounds of bath salts, they're going to pick him up, take him to the police station, and go talk to mom and daddy. Or if it's a known drug dealer, they're going to do it. What they're doing is they are taking bath salts with a certain chemical. It's not all bath salts that's on the market. Next slide, please. But there is a bath salt on the market that has the same chemical in it equal to THC, which causes massive hallucinogenic effects. Abusing bath salts through smoking them, injecting them, or snorting them can produce intense and frequent dangerous side effects. Your first shot of bath salts, you've just written your death sentence. That is how potent these things are. Violence, paranoia, suicidal tendencies, psychotic behavior are common reactions to bath salts. Now, I'm not on the zombie crave. I think zombies is nothing more than glorified cannibals, and I don't think we as children of God ought to be involved in the zombie world. But the side effects to bath salts is producing zombie-like attitudes in people. We all are familiar with the story in Florida. The young man that took the bath salts, and the police pulled him off of a homeless man that was on the side of the road as he was chewing his face off under the influence of bath salts. They are calling people who are under the influence of bath salts zombies. Next slide. Here's some of the newspaper articles from the Times Journal. Zombie reports, apocalypse of zombies, zombie attacks, bath salts, drug triggers, cannibalism. It's not a joke. And I have heard young people make the statement, well, it's just a little high. No, it's not a little high. This is very dangerous. And the thing is everyone that has ever done drugs, and this came out in a study back in the 60s, at that time, everyone that had ever done drugs at one time in their lives did marijuana first. Now, they did say in the study that not everybody that smoked marijuana went on to drugs, but everybody that was on hardcore drugs that they had arrested at that time had started with marijuana. So you start with that little kick, you start with that little calmness, you start with that little high, and you start looking for something more, and something stronger, and something more, and something stronger. And before you know it, you can't exist today. And when the marijuana is no longer feeding your hunger, you move on to something else. And when that's no longer feeding your hunger, you move on to something else. And you move on to something else until finally you have nothing that feeds your hunger. And so you're going to end up in a gutter on the side of the street if you don't get a hold of God and get off the mess. This is not a game. These things, we are dumbing, we're destroying our generation. The next slide, bath salts, the illegal chemicals, and I am not even going to try to say that name. But methadone, known on the street as MDPV, is considered to be man-made cocaine. Having or selling bath salts that contains this chemical is now a felony. The quantity of bath salts found during an arrest determines the type of felony charge that is implied. Now, I'm going to show you in just a minute just how serious the police is with this. Let's go to the next slide. All right, all you students in here, how much is 1 gram of bath salts? Anybody want to take a swipe at it? 1 gram of bath salts. Okay? 1 gram of bath salts is equal to 1/16 to 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's not very much. But if you are caught with less than 1 gram, you will go to state jail. It is a felony of 180 days to 2 years. If you are caught with 1 to 4 grams, it is a second-degree felony, and you will spend 2 to 20 years in prison, plus fines. And if you're caught with more than 4 grams, you can spend 5 to 99 years in prison, plus fines. That's how serious the state of Texas is about this stuff. We need to be very, very careful. You know, people blow my mind. We have a young man that 2 years ago, his parents went in there to check on him. He hadn't come out the night before for dinner, so the next morning they go in and they check on him and they find him dead. And attached to his nose was a thin tube, and attached to the end of that was a can of the air that you use to clean your computer keys and all, because that's like CO2. And the minute it froze his lungs. And when he sprayed it to get that 5-second high, he killed himself. Markers, kids sniffing markers to get just a brief fling of a high, glue. And that's all old school stuff compared to what's on the streets now. The next slide, you can see the side effects. I'm not going to read them all because basically your side effects all run pretty much the same. But with salt, you got a quicker train ticket to death than maybe your synthetic marijuana and all. There was a drug on the market, PCP, and PCP, the police hated when they got a phone call to the police, somebody that was addicted to PCP, because their strength was magnified. Salt is doing the same thing. So you need to be very careful. And I'm going to tell you, you approach somebody on the street and they look like they're spaced out and they look like a zombie, Sister Alice, pick up the phone and call the police. Don't try to take them down yourself. Because when you're dealing with somebody that's high on drugs, you never know what's going to happen. And you're doing them a favor by calling for the authorities to get them, hopefully, the help that they'll need. The next slide. Please watch if your children brings these candies home. They've got puppy dogs on them. They got dolphins on them. They're in bright, pretty Eastery colors. They're being distributed at schools. They're being distributed at colleges. They're known for the party scenes. So be careful. If you see your children bring any of these home, please don't unwrap them and eat them. It's ecstasy. Ecstasy, Molly, E, XTC, X, Atom, Hug, Beans, Clarity, Lover Speed, and Love Drug. It's trouble. Okay? Please be cautious. Molly is a toxic mix of lab-created chemicals. The DEA says that taking Molly is like playing Russian roulette. So if you really feel like you got to take this stuff, the DEA says just go ahead and get a gun, put one bullet in it, spin the chamber, and shoot it. That's what it's the equivalent to. Now, let's do the next slide. I remember the young people singing, when I say young people, I'm talking about kids at school, singing this song. So la da dee da dee, we like to party, dancing with Molly, doing whatever we want. This is our house, this is our rules. We can't stop, we won't stop. We run things, things don't run. Things don't run we. Don't take nothing from nobody, yeah. And the rest of the song's about as stupid as the chorus I just read you. It don't make a dime's worth of sense. Miley Cyrus at this time was just hitting her popularity as a young adult. She had left Disney and was now entering into a wild world, and she's gone from wild to beyond wild. But this was the song that was going through the schools of my daughter's last year of high school. And I'm going to be honest. I was one of the ones that didn't pay any attention to the song because it was just a stupid sounding little ditty. And then one day when researching this stuff, it hit me. Oh, Miley Cyrus wasn't singing about her girlfriend Molly. She was singing about ecstasy. She was singing about the drugs. And this is a picture of her doing the song at one of her concerts, and she is smoking drugs. So, we need to even pay attention sometimes to the music. I talked to you a minute ago about their chanting to each other. These songs like this are used among young people to tell times and dates of when they're going to meet, parties they're going to, raves that they're going to, and what drugs are going to be at these parties and raves. Parents, educate yourself. And I'm going to tell you, the kids are constantly changing things. And not just kids. There's adults out there that's involved in this. The kids didn't create this stuff. It was created by adults who are using our kids. But educate yourself on the things around you. And this stuff is light compared to some of the stuff that these kids are getting involved in today. MDMA, the next slide, please, is short for that big word again, commonly known as ecstasy or Molly. It's a man-made drug similar to amphetamines. It's known as the club drug because of its popularity in the nightclub scenes. All-night dance parties, music festivals, and concerts. The next slide shows the side effects of this drug. When we lived in Statesboro, Georgia, I came home one day. My home had been broken into. My beds had been slept in. My food in the refrigerator had been eaten. And they had defecated on all the heat registers in my home. I called the police. The police came out there, and they said, "We're sorry," but this is going on all over the county. It was a group of high school kids that was coming off of drug highs. And when they come down off these drug highs, they're hungry. And so they break into homes. They would eat the food. He said, "You're actually very lucky." He said, because the last house they broke into, they spray painted everything in the house. So, this stuff has very negative side effects, not only on the young people that's taking them or the adults that's taking them, but on the society around them. An overdose of ecstasy, the next slide, can cause high blood pressure, fainting, panic attacks, loss of consciousness, seizures, and depending on the dosages, it can also cause death. Now, we all live in the valley. And we are very close to our neighbors in Mexico. And the thing that I went to said that the valley is a free-for-all for drugs, that they are easy to find in the valley. So parents, we need to be even more vigilant than ever before. Illicit drugs in the 8th grade in 2011 was 20%. Okay, 20.10%. The 12th grade, not 12th grade, but in 2012 it jumped up to 18.5%. And then in 2013 it jumped up to 20%. And then in 2000 somewhere. We don't need to turn our heads when we see illegal activity going on. Because if we don't, who will? Next slide, please, Brother Riley. Everybody see this little plant? Isn't it pretty? If you have this plant, this particular plant, in your home, please get rid of it. Because as of September of 2013, it was made illegal in the state of Texas. And most people do not know that. I didn't know it until I went to this meeting. This is called salvia. It's also known as prairie sage, purple sticky, magic mint, sage of the seers, pastora, Maria pastora, and diviner sage. They roll it and they smoke it, and it causes hallucinations. They crush it and they eat it, and it causes hallucinations. This plant had the only way you can own this plant in the state of Texas right now is if it is growing in its natural habitat and has not been harvested. Natural habitat means you own acreage and it's naturally growing there. You didn't go and buy it from southern Mexico and bring it into the United States and plant it. Okay? And this plant is originally from southern Mexico. Okay? This plant has caused a lot of little problems. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my grandmother was a herbalist, and my uncle was a druggist. And I don't mean the legal kind. And he grew marijuana out in the fields of my grandparents' acreage. And one day the FBI came in and they busted him, and he had enough to put him in prison for 30 years. And he spent that time in prison too. And they went on my grandmother's porch because it was my grandmother and my grandfather's land that the drugs were found on. And on the back porch, my grandmother had in a potted flower pot a marijuana plant. And the officer looked at my grandmother and he said, Mrs. Lynn, he said, do you know what you have here? My grandmother looked about like Sister Helen, about the same height and everything. And my grandmother, who is an herbalist, and all her country-born innocence, looked at that officer and said, no, sir, I sure don't. That's my ferns. And so the officer looked at her and fell for it. And he said, well, Miss Lynn, I'm going to confiscate these ferns. And my grandmother did not get arrested, but she knew what she had. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have them at home, please don't play my grandmother because it can get you in trouble. Salvia is being smoked, chewed, and it has the same side effects as pot. And it's actually, because it's in the natural raw plant form, it's actually even a little stronger. You see hallucinations. Some of the hallucinations has been bugs on the walls. It's been lines and squiggly lines and things coming after, feeling being connected, feeling of flying, feeling of a special energy field around you, living in a dreamlike substance. So be aware of the fact when little Susie or little Johnny brings home these leaves and says, oh, this is mint, I'm just going to put it in my tea because it's also part of the mint family. No. It will get you in trouble. And one thing that a lot of parents do not realize, and if you don't know it, I'm fixing to inform you. If you have people living in your home or your children bring people into the home and you allow them to spend the night and things like this, and you need to know your children's friends too. And say Sally has Susie come over and Susie and them are in the room and Susie brings over marijuana. And the police just happen to come to your home for some reason. You're all going to get in trouble because you're supposed to be controlling what goes on into your home. Okay? So please be conscious. For the safety of our children, be conscious of what's going on. Next slide, Brother Riley. We are almost done, ladies and gentlemen. I've got 2 more slides. One more. I'm sorry. I had several of these plants. It's so pretty. Next, please. Next. That's what the leaves look like if you see your children saying they're going to make some tea. Keep going, please. Keep going. Okay. I want you to look at these pictures. How many watches Scooby-Doo? Yeah, we all like Scooby-Doo, don't we? Okay. How many watches Snow White? Dopey is not my favorite character. Grumpy is. Imagine that. But you see Dopey up there, right? You see some of the characters off of Batman, and then you see Scooby-Doo again. You tell me, by looking at that, they're not marketing and targeting for our children? 99% of your drug dealers or your drug addicts that go into a store, they don't care if Scooby-Doo's on that or not. They just want the drugs. But little Ezra or little Johnny, they come in and they look up there and they see Scooby-Doo and they start hollering, I want. They think it's candy, a synthetic marijuana. So they're targeting our children. So please be cautious. And I'm going to tell you something, especially around Halloween time. One of the ways that they hook kids is they take these packages and they give it to kids. Here's you some candy. We've all heard the story of the cocaine-laced brownies. Don't let your kids take stuff from strangers. Is there hope? Yes, there's hope. Is there answers? Yes, there are answers. Number one answer is to educate yourself. Second answer is know what your children's up to. Third answer, you set yourself as the example. My uncle would tell his boys, if I ever catch you doing drugs, I'm going to take the baseball bat and beat your rear end. And I turned around and I looked at him one day. I said, how can you do that when I got pictures of you holding nickel bags of marijuana. You set the example. You don't want your children doing it? Then don't give them the example of you doing it. That don't mean that they might not experiment, but when you find out about it, as long as they're parking their feet under your table, you need to handle it. Because you may be saving them from a death sentence. And then the most important answer that there is our last slide. God, He heals the brokenhearted and He binds up the wounds. You can't do any of this on your own. If you are addicted to drugs, if you're playing with drugs, if you're addicted to alcohol or you're playing with alcohol, God can help you through it. God can help you let go of it. But He's not going to come down here and lasso you and drag you out of it. You've got to say, hey, I want the help. I don't want this life anymore. If you're involved in prostitution or pornography and stuff like that, there is a God that breaks every chain that the devil has ever set out to wrap around you. And I know a God that is stronger than anything that the devil wants to throw out. Because what the devil intends for harm, my God says, I gave my blood so that you could be set free. So let's make ourselves up. Let's know what's going on around us, because today, the day and times we live in, while we are sharing the Word of God, we've also got to share the word of education. So that these kids, because sometimes these kids look at it and think they're pulling stuff over our eyes, and sometimes they are. But sometimes they run across to me. So educate yourself, because we don't want to see our children. Young people, all you young people in here, look at me just a minute. We don't do this to harm you, stop your fun, stop you from living a fun life. But we don't want to attend any of your funerals. And I don't want to see any of you in jail. You can live a good, fun, clean life and not be involved with the tricks of the lost Eden.
Let's clap our hands and praise the Lord right now. Come on, let's magnify the Lord. Let's exalt the Lord in Jesus' name. Hallelujah.